Hello, Mike here from the Ground to Green Homestead. Many of you formerly know me as the guy making all the truck videos. And although I love my Ford diesel-powered products, I am taking the channel a new direction. I did the poll a few weeks back, and the constructive feedback was that you would like to see me produce other content. So we're taking the channel in a more homestead-like direction. As you can see behind me is my wonderful flock of chickens. And that's what we're going to start off with. If you enjoy this type of content, maybe you want to, not limiting it to that either, might review certain tools or what have you, but please, if you enjoy the content, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you. So for my first video, I figured you'd want to see more of the chicks than my ugly mug. So quick tips that every beginning chicken owner should know. First off, and by far the most important, is you need to look into your ordinances, laws, covenants, city restrictions, what have you, whatever you want to call them. You need to review all of that before you spend a bunch of time, money, and resources raising these wonderful little guys, only to be forced to potentially get rid of them or rehome them or what have you. That is by far the most important tip before you even buy a bird. Second most important tip is before you bring everything home, it's going to take a little bit of research, figuring out what your needs are, what you want, what works best for you, but you need to have everything prepared before you bring chickens home. You need to have your heat light or your heat plate. You need to have bedding. You need to have food, fresh water, feeders, waters. Now there's a lot of cheap and inexpensive options to get creative and have all these needs met, but you need to have them met because chickens grow very quickly and they're very needy, especially within that first week. They are very heat sensitive, very water dependent, and they just need a lot of care. The next tip would be the supplies. So we just have a basic bowl here for food, and then a basic gravity-fed water. They even sell these in kits. But you might also want to grab a couple other things like Blue Coat for potential injuries. This is nice to have on hand. A nutrient supplement for the water. I can show you what we use here in a second, but it's important to have those supplies on hand and the coop and the run finished before you buy the chicks, because otherwise you'll be racing the clock, and it's never fun to be racing the clock while chickens are getting bigger and uncomfortable in their beginner home. Next, the types of purpose for the breed you're selecting. So there's three main purposes for chickens. There's meat, there's eggs, and then there's dual purpose. So a chicken, for example, the white chickens we have in here are light Brahmas, and they're considered a dual purpose breed where they can be bred to be egg layers or they can be bred to be a meat bird. There's some breeds, for example, the Cornish Cross is probably the most popular. That's a very fast-growing breed, and specifically for meat, it's more prone to certain ailments and other physical challenges, so it's not really a good choice to have as a long-term flock bird. But just know the breed that you're buying. So do your due diligence, research that breed. We have here, just for reference, these are going to be our egg layers. We got 2 light Brahmas, we got 3 sapphire gems, and we got a couple Americanas. So we're going to have a nice variety of colored eggs and brown eggs and large eggs and everything in between. Next, quick little tip is where to buy. So we buy all of our birds locally. We typically go to the farm stores or we go to local breeders. We haven't had any experience yet with ordering online yet. I just personally feel more comfortable inspecting the birds, make sure they're eating, drinking, moving, that they're getting proper care for at the store, and I can't do that when I order them online. So that's just my personal opinion. I would prefer to buy them online, or sorry, buy them in person rather than ordering them online. Next tip, when you are holding and grabbing baby chicks, you want to have good control of them. You don't want to ever grab them by the legs or the wings. You You want them to be nice and controlled, so if they try to escape or try to fly away, they aren't going to fall and get injured. As promised, I said I was going to share what we add to the water, especially during the first few weeks. It's called Rooster Booster. If you can see that, it's an electrolyte and vitamin supplement that we add to the water of the chicks for the first few weeks. And we typically use non-medicated feed. You can use medicated feed and look into that as well. This is Little Lemon. So Lemon's a Buff Orpington. There is an unfortunate side with keeping chicks and keeping chickens that you might eventually have to deal with sick ones. So she wasn't responding really well. I think she was dehydrated. So we separated her from her sisters and put her in a separate brooder. If I hadn't mentioned that already, along with extra supplies, is potentially having an extra place to segregate a sick chick. So we've been giving her concentrated doses of the electrolyte booster with her water and just keeping an eye on her, make sure she's eating, drinking, and moving. But unfortunately, if she wasn't getting better within a few weeks, we would have had to make a hard decision. And the animal husbandry term for killing a chicken is culling. And we've had to do that in the past. And it's just something you need to be aware of if you're looking at getting chickens. You might have to eventually cull one. Whether it's a rooster that's unwanted, whether it's a sick chick, whether it's a predator that got to a chick and injured it. It's very important to consider that, because it's not all sunshines and rainbows owning chickens, even though they're very fun to have and they grow very quick and they provide eggs and meat and a bunch of other wonderful things. Next we have here our little Isa Browns. I've nicknamed them the Brady Bunch. But so my next quick little tip is at approximately 8 weeks, it could vary by breed and your situation, is when, especially in spring, when chicks normally can start to go outside. Really, it's when they're fully feathered. That's what you want to look for. If you look at the Isa Browns here, none of them have any fluff. All of them have fully developed feathers, and they don't need an external heat source. It's gotten as cold as mid-20s in Michigan here, and they've kept each other very warm in our little makeshift doghouse coop. And this is just going to be a temporary home for the next couple weeks while the adult chicks can interact, but can't really peck and hurt them, but can clearly see them, interact with them, and slowly become acclimated to the rest of the flock. And we've done this very successfully a couple times in the past without any issues. Next, I don't think I mentioned it when I was showing you our other chicks inside. When you first get chicks, you want to make sure you have enough space. So it's really when they get to be full-grown adults. Commercially, I think it's at least 2 square feet per bird, but you really want more adequate room than that. Our run is about 40 feet by 16 feet, and when we're all said and done with, we're going to have about 20 layers here. And you want your chickens to have room to move, room to forage. Some of you free range. I personally don't, because we live in a sub-rural area and we have lots of predators like hawks and other things in the area that I don't want to have to deal with. But make sure your chicks have adequate room in the run and in their coop. And when you first get chicks, you might have to dip their beaks and show them where the water is. They can be kind of stupid at first. They can run away from shelter. They might need to be put into the shelter, put into their heat source, show them where water is, show them where the food is, and other simple little things like that. My last tip probably be regarding predators. Make sure you, and I might touch on this in future videos, but for sake of time, have carabiner clips on your latches, hardware cloth to protect your chickens, adequate protection from the elements. But it's just know keeping chickens is a long-term investment, but something about those fresh eggs and fresh meat that you help produce yourself really makes it all worth it. And I hope you enjoy this content. I hope you enjoy keeping chickens. Franklin enjoyed it too. Have a good one.